and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. We'll start with board communications, and we'll start with Commissioner Webb.
Sorry, I've got too many different kinds of apps or whatever these are called, and they're not, the mute button is not always in the same place, so it's always a little struggle for me. So, okay, from Commissioner Webb, the Arts Council, it has, and we are actually, I think, going to be voting on a new member of the Arts Council, is a group that's been, that the county has been supporting actually for 5-6 years. And recently, during the pandemic, I think they've been very cool at doing something they have wanted for a long time, to do a very complete census is probably the right word, of all of the arts resources in the county, countywide. Excuse me, not just the ones that are countywide, but everyone. Arts, art galleries, performance venues, a lot of educational processes that are beefing up the arts education in our public schools, dance, etc. And they've really done a terrific job over the past year. They're assembling quite a digest, and I think it says something that even though many of these organizations have not been able to practice their arts during this year, we are they've really made a lot of headway in this directory, and they are planning again to have an arts summit, which unfortunately was canceled last year, but their first one 2 years ago was really fantastic, and it was the whole objective is to help artists of all kinds figure out how to make money at what they're practicing. And there were marvelous guests, and one of my favorites is Don Nesbitt, who has a gallery in Ilwaco, and they brought in all kinds of people who were doing very well in marketing artistic processes and outcomes. So you'll be hearing about that pretty soon, because it's scheduled for early fall. The Northwest Oregon Housing Authority continues to try to reinvent itself and understand what its strategic planning process should look like. And we'll actually be beginning that process this coming month. Secondly, the NOAA has recently contracted with a company that did an analysis of all of its properties in all 3 counties, and it was an incredible thing to look at, because a very wonderful consulting company came in and went and actually inspected every one of our properties, and did a 50-year projection of the work that needed to be done to keep these facilities from falling apart, and to plan for the long term, to make improvements before they got to be their whole objective is, hey, before this building falls down, let's spend money to renovate it while it doesn't cost us $4 million, maybe only $2 million. And it's an interesting, I think, for folks like us who who are responsible for a lot of county-owned facilities, I think it's an exercise that it would be well worth our doing, because it goes so far into the future. And they produced a fantastic spreadsheet that is very dense with data. And I've told the county manager that I'd like to actually bring it to a work session and share it with you all to see what I think what a rich repository of data it's all about. And it's the kind of thing that we could easily be doing for ourselves here. I think I've learned a lot in the relocation of the Public Works Department about how complex the management of these properties can be, and how important it is to take a long-term view at them and deal with them on a more longer-term basis, annually, and also in 5 and 10-year chunks. We had a North Coast tourism meeting last week as well, and I think that we're beginning to get feedback from a lot of our tourism industries about how quickly they're seeing recovery. It's pretty inspiring. I think we're seeing the same thing that we did, well, late last year, when we could just tell people are just so desperate to get out of their houses. And coming to the coast is one of the places, of course, some of us actually live here because we love it so much. But it's been good news. The businesses are doing a wonderful job. For anybody who's been out to dinner recently, their biggest challenge, and we have none of them are getting, the chamber isn't getting any negative comments about businesses that aren't practicing, safety, COVID safety. They're getting no complaints. The biggest challenge is getting people to apply for their open positions. The restaurants especially told us that the only thing that was keeping them from being 100% available and making money was the fact that they can't get enough employees. I hope that means we'll see a little bit of a wage increase. Wouldn't that be exciting? But there seems to also be, what they're saying is that a lot of people in our hospitality industry come here specifically to work and aren't originally from here. And that when the pandemic hit, they basically went home, which means they went back to the valley or to other places. But the news is very good in terms of businesses being able to get back to business. I think that's all I've got.
Commissioner Webb, and certainly staffing has been an issue across the board, but so glad to hear from your report that the hospitality industry is rebounding. That's fantastic news. Commissioner Toyoka.
Well, good evening, everyone. The only statement or correspondence I want to make at this moment is Memorial Day. And I don't want to steal thunder from our regular meeting proclamations and all that, but today has been a wonderful day of talking to veterans, talking to families of those who've had family members and loved ones sacrifice during conflict. And just to refocus, one of my classmates, he sent us all this email and it said, just to put it in perspective, while everybody's talking about barbecues and fun things for the 3-day weekend, he said, Armed Forces Day is for those in uniform. Veterans Day is for those who hung up their uniform. Memorial Day is for those who never made it out of their uniform. So perspective, just, the thanks to all those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And as we keep perspective for this holiday, what it really means and the appreciation we have for all of those who celebrate, provide us all the good things we have in this country. So very appreciative.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Toyoka, and very well said. And thank you so much for your service. Commissioner Bang.
I sure hope I can remain connected. I keep getting kicked off of my Wi-Fi, so I apologize. Just a little bit about my week. I'll just talk about one thing right now, and then we had a wonderful conversation regarding childcare here earlier this week, and I just wanted to say thank you to Commissioner Thompson for all of the efforts that she had prior to my swearing in to bring me into the fold of the discussion regarding childcare, because she knew how important it was to me. And so we had a fabulous reconvening and idea session here this last week. And I really look forward to the future that we have, hopefully in the early learning field here in Clatsop County. It gave me a lot of hope for our future and for our childcare feasibility here in Clatsop County, and getting a number of brains together to discuss an issue that is so important to the growth of our community. So anyhow, that was just one thing that happened here recently. And again, Commissioner Thompson, I'm very grateful for you bringing me into the fold early on last year. And I hope that we can keep moving forward. And Commissioner Quila, I appreciate you popping in here and being a part of the discussion here this last week. I'm appreciative to see all the new faces, and so hopefully we can continue forward with great ideas. So anyhow, that's just a little bit from this last week, and I'll share more at our meeting. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner Bangs. And yes, it's Commissioner Thompson, and it's going to take a joint effort and a big effort to solve a very big issue in our community. But we've got to start somewhere. So I'm glad that we're making some initial progress. Commissioner Thompson.
Okay, so now I'm all choked up. To be able to share the work and pass the baton and include more in the community in this essential work is just the very best. So thank you, Commissioner Bangs. I'll do an update at the meeting. I want to hear about the money coming from the feds, please.
Commissioner Thompson, I echo your sentiments. I want to hear about the money too. So we'll go ahead and first we got to discuss the formal agenda. Does anybody have any comments, discussion about the agenda this evening? Not seeing any. With that, we'll go ahead to our one topic on the work session, which is American Rescue Act monies. And I'll turn it over to Monica Steele. Or it's going to be Dawn. Sorry, County Manager.
Yeah, that's right. I can be Monica too, but members of the board, it's going to be Dawn and Monica, and so we're both here to kind of just provide an overview of a concept plan that we have been working on. And I just want to really underscore that this is just a rough concept. We're bringing it to your board to really let us know if we're heading in the right direction and if there are missing elements that you have the opportunity to fill in, and if you need to redirect, you have that opportunity also. So just as a little background, the American Rescue Act is distributing resources to states, counties, metropolitan cities, tribal governments, and territories. And so we are the recipient of the county share, and our share is estimated to be $7.8 million that will be received over time, and I think 2 different installments, with the first one being just under $4 million. And we're expecting to receive that pretty soon. And so what the American Rescue Act legislation really provided for is investments in the local communities related to impacts on COVID or other infrastructure investments. And so those areas we have really focused on is support to the public health response, which also includes replacement of some of the public health revenues that were lost during the pandemic, focusing on the negative economic impacts of COVID, and that can include harm to workers, families, small businesses, industries, and the public sector. And then the last category is really infrastructure, and that's really broken down into water and sewer and also broadband. And so that's kind of the framework that came out of the federal legislation. Staff then also looked at the governor's 10-point economic recovery plan and the county strategic plan to then offer some additional focus to what would become the board spending plan. And so we provided in the board packet some of the infographics that Amanda put together to help frame what those different elements were. And then Monica, if you could maybe throw up the spreadsheet. Because this is a concept, I'd like to really walk through it with your board, get your feedback, and just know that the actual elements and the numbers are completely at your discretion. We threw in numbers and we haven't done all of the diligence to really affirm these. So you see different potential avenues for, let's say, childcare. We're not saying that those necessarily would be the ones as much as we are saying that setting aside resources for such programs would be consistent with the federal guidelines and would be consistent with the governor's 10-point plan and the county strategic plan. So what I would ask your board is really think of this with really kind of a broad brush stroke of saying, does the alignment between the federal requirements, the governor's 10-point plan, and the strategic plan make sense for this concept plan? And I will say that this is over a 3.5-year period. And so over that 3.5 years, one thing we absolutely know is that things will change. And so our assumption is that this plan will also evolve as things change. And so if your board decided to want to focus on one particular area more than another, you would have multiple opportunities to refine this this plan over time. You know, it is rare, and in fact, before COVID, it was really rare that that governments received federal funding that had such broad framework for expenditure. And so this is an opportunity for really the counties and for cities and for others to really make a difference on their communities. Many cities have been looking at investing these resources into some of the deferred maintenance and some of the deferred infrastructure that they have with their wastewater systems and their water systems. And so, you know, it really has provided an opportunity for some of these jurisdictions to move the needle on some of their highest end needs. So starting at the top of the spreadsheet, and I'll just kind of walk through the first section, and then we can answer any questions. This section really focuses on support to address the negative economic impacts of COVID. And so we have set aside $1 million for a grant program for small businesses. We've had some just very preliminary discussions with Kevin Leahy about that. They were the conduit for distributing other small grant funding for businesses, and you know, the assumption we've been working with is that they would do the same thing with this funding source. We've set aside resources for childcare. Childcare is something that the pandemic has really shown a light on in terms of its inadequacy and its challenges. And so we have put in a placeholder for a training program for childcare providers and a daycare expansion grant opportunity. Again, those are just placeholders. As the childcare discussion continues, we have basically set aside roughly $430,000 that could be used for really whatever purpose seems to be the highest and best priority. The next is a navigation center consultant, and then some navigation center operational expenses. The navigation center, again, is the idea of really centralizing some of those services to those most needed in our community. It's something that's been discussed for some time, and having that consultant money be available to bring all those potential partners together and to develop a business model for the navigation center is really what needs to be done for that project to actually move forward. And then I identified some seed money to actually make that happen. We set aside some money for some emergency shelter system support, and that's at a level of $250,000. And we see that as going into the shelter system. As you know, the shelter system has been stressed during the pandemic, but they have been important partners with us. And so part of our goal is to support them. There's some other nonprofit support, which is $100,000 over 2 years or in 2 subsequent years for a total of $200,000. And that's to support all these other nonprofits that are providing services, whether it's food, whether it's other support, mental health support, alcohol and drug. So, because every nonprofit who is providing services has been stressed during the pandemic, and they've also had a lot of expenses. The next is a topic that we've talked about quite a bit, which is the mental health crisis response. Again, it's a pandemic-related challenge, but there has been a lot of related mental health crisis, and CBH, who is doing a lot of great work, could benefit from additional resources to put into that challenge. And so there was $360,000 placed into that service element. And then the last is affordable housing. And the concept we have been discussing is a concept, and this is just rough form, but a concept to invest resources into NOHA so that they could hire a development coordinator to really assist the cities and the counties in putting together, nonprofit partnership packages to really develop affordable housing units in the county. It would be a way to leverage public lands and to use the expertise that you need to put these complex deals together. And we believe that having that within NOAA would create a lot of synergy with the federal programs also. And then the last part of the affordable housing was some affordable housing grants, which would offer resources for some pre-development activities, which a lot of housing deals don't get done because they don't have the resources to even do some of the pre-development work. So that's kind of our response to dealing with the economic impacts. And again, it's very general, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have with that as a framework.
Any questions for our county manager?
Yeah.
Commissioner Webb.
I have a question just about the matrix itself. There's a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, but there's nothing subsequent to 2. So I don't.
So that is when the American Rescue Act was first being discussed in the concept. They had 4 different elements, and so one of the elements dealt with premium pay for essential workers, and that would have been number 2. And we have not recommended in our concept plan any premium pay. And the main reason is the premium pay was limited up to $13 per hour as pay, and the Oregon minimum wage is at 12 roughly right now. And so some of the federal minimum wage, I think, is in the $7 range, $7.25. And so because the Oregon minimum wage is so much higher, and I'm not saying that that's adequate, but I'm just saying relatively it is higher, in the federal legislation capped it at $13 per hour. So we didn't include that because we were focusing on the infrastructure and some of the other economic impacts.
Go ahead, Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other question I had is about the issue, and I've been through many more expanded versions describing this legislation, and I'm concerned about the issue of housing, that there isn't, and by obviously you've included long-term housing assistance, but how about temporary, shorter term support for all these people who are in danger of being evicted in the coming months, and kind of an emergency housing issue, not so much for homelessness, but for.
So we have been, there has been a lot of rental assistance money that has been going into some of our community nonprofits that have been distributed to those in the community who were most vulnerable for eventual eviction. And so one of the things we would be doing as a step 2 here is to go back to those nonprofits and to talk with them about what their highest needs are, what are they seeing. And so if additional rental assistance or emergency assistance for utilities or some other costs rise to the top of their priority list, then that would fall under the other nonprofit support. And if it turns out that the need is so much greater, then we could come back and have that conversation with the board. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Don. I like that approach. Any other questions?
So, Chair Quill, if it's okay, I'll go down to the next one, which is really dealing with the public health infrastructure.
Okay. Oh, I know Commissioner Banks did have a question if you wanted to field that. Go ahead.
Oh, it's pretty simple. I see that this is a draft. At what point do we have to have this written in stone?
It doesn't need to be written. So how I see this playing out right now is that if your board is generally supportive of the framework, then staff would then go back and have some of the conversations with our partners, get a little bit more detail, and then we would come back to your board. And I would say we'd probably do that in the next 30 days or so. And that would still be a concept. And so what we would have your board do is really approve the concept. And then as we get more specifics on all these grant programs or all these program elements, we would come back to your board. So let's say that in concept, there was $1 million set aside for the small business grant program. When we're actually ready to move that element forward, we would come back to your board and have you approve that as an individual. So you won't approve the concept and then have everything come. We'll actually come back to you for approval of all of the different elements. And the reason for that is because there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of work that has to be done with our partners. And there's a community engagement side to this also, which we'll have to go out and get input from the community about whether these reflect the highest needs at this point. And so we're going to keep the concept pretty flexible, and then we will come back to your board for each individual action once we are ready. if that makes sense.
Okay, good question. Okay, Don.
So the next element is really focusing on the public health side, and we have experienced some lost revenue in this last year regarding some of the public health program fees. As you know, staff has been very focused on the vaccination and on the COVID response, contact tracing, testing. And so there have been downstream impacts. And so there's some resources that would backfill some of those revenue losses. The other is that we'd like to invest in the public health infrastructure, and that is a big number. It's $1,175,000 over the 3-year period. But one thing we have learned, and I'm sure Margot can answer any questions about this, is that we need to be a little bit more robust in terms of our staffing levels to be able to respond to these situations. We've had a very small team working very hard. And although we will always be somewhat lean, there are some key investments we can make that would really position us to respond better in future events. And so it's things like investing in a clinic manager who's also an RN, focusing on some of the environmental health supervision, staff assistance, just looking at the entire structure of the public health department and investing in it. So there's $1.175 million, as I said, over that 3.5-year period for that. The other is there's $150,000 for county facility space planning, and public health is just one area of the county that is and will continue to experience space pressures. And so we would like to bring somebody in to really help us plan for the future with your board on what those space needs look like, and then have a plan to actually execute on those space needs. And then the final one is emergency preparedness and resiliency. And I'll let Monica, do you recall that $30,000?
Yes, that was to help set up a mobile command center, and that's actually supporting the southern portion of the county.
So that's the kind of the public health piece. And again, it goes a little bit beyond public health in terms of the space planning is a bigger piece of the pie than just public health. But is there any questions about those elements?
Commissioner Webb has a question.
I know that in recent years, one of the passions of our previous health department director was getting clinics within our schools, especially in rural areas. And I know that Mike was instrumental in getting funding for some of those. Was that actually school system money? I mean, is that something that we should be looking for in this exercise of perhaps talking to, especially the rural districts about? I know that Jewel, for instance, I think is opening a clinic, aren't they? I don't know about Napa. But was there any conversation about facilitating not only perhaps the staffing and operation of some of the school clinics?
I don't know if Margot wants to give an update on the school clinic piece, but we did not talk about, as part of this money, the school clinic component, and part of it was just focusing, again, going through the strategic plan, the governor's list, and the federal guidelines, and then focusing on those elements. It's Margot has been working with Jewel School District, and I'll let her give a brief update if you could, Margot.
Sure, be happy to. Good evening. I have been working closely with Jewel School District, and we are making progress on that school-based health center. There was a bit of a pause with the transition, and also the distraction of the pandemic put public health in a situation where it wasn't able to meet its recent work plan. And so there was a pause in the funding continuing to come from the state. We work that out. We have a new plan of action, and in fact, I have a meeting with our state liaison next week. I'm also in conversations with community health system partners around support for the school-based health center, and we are building the clinic. I mean, we're getting more equipment there. We have a refrigerator there. We're setting it up with all of that, and we have a team at the school that includes students that are really working on making it their medical home. So I'm pleased about that progress, as well as having meetings with the CCO, that CPCCO, that has also been supportive of the project. A bit concerned about the pause, but we've remedied that situation. So we're looking at an opening date, hopefully for the beginning of the school year in September. There's a certification process that the school-based health center needs to go through in order to receive continued funding. I will say that school-based health centers don't support themselves, but they are able to bring together different funding sources to provide support. And Jewel's unique in that it has the potential for being a community clinic, not just a school-based clinic. So if we meet certification requirements, there'll be some funding that is ongoing from the state of Oregon. And I'm sure there'll be other partnership opportunities with our coordinated care organization. Napa is on hold at this point in time. Their school board, I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago, determined that at least at this time, it wasn't at a place where they wanted to move forward. I think the plan is to revisit that in the future. And also, you know, I will say, based upon my experience, that we have a pretty traditional way of still looking at the design of school-based health centers, but there are other options out there now for looking at how to design it and leveraging existing assets and resources. So I've encouraged Napa to do that as well. And just based upon everything we're doing in public health right now, and in my opinion, we were spread pretty thin in terms of our commitments throughout the community, as well as needing to tend to our own infrastructure, that for us right now, I really am focused on the Jewel School-Based Health Center, and hope in the future we could be of support to Napa. Certainly we are in a consultative way, but taking it on as a development project right now is a bit more than we have the capacity to handle.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks has a question.
And I just wanted to follow up that this last year, Napa School District hired a full-time nurse for the school district itself, and is going to continue, and has since hired a new full-time nurse. So, and it's in the hands of our school board right now on where the school-based health center moves at this point. But I know that discussions are in the works. And I think one of the limiting factors for us here in Napa is that it doesn't support itself. The model does not support itself. And for us, when funding is so tight anyway, it's been a struggle. It's been a conversation here. And it's definitely a concern that is in the forefront of our school district. And I fully support Dr. Fritz and our school board in their efforts moving forward. So.
And just to piggyback, because this isn't about school-based health centers, this conversation, but I have been following up with him, because there's a hybrid model that would incorporate telehealth into the existing full-time school nurse position. It's been very successful. I've actually implemented that model statewide, but there are other places in the country that have done that. And there's much more funding now available for telehealth, and even in the school setting. And so I have encouraged him to consider other alternative models, if you will, in the future. So that's all I'll say about that.
Okay, not seeing any more questions. We'll go ahead and continue, Don.
Okay, thank you, Chair Coelho. So the fourth category really deals with that infrastructure piece that has been both in the governor's plan as well as the federal legislation and a highlight of the county strategic plan. And so in the concept plan, we have set aside resources at roughly $2 million for the rural internet accessibility and enhancement. And what this really is we started doing a pilot out in the Jewel LC Vine Maple area. It's been a project that's been in the works for roughly the last 6 months. We have a consultant that's been working with the community, with the school district, with the power company, with some businesses out there, looking at options to improve internet accessibility, which obviously COVID has shown a light on the inadequacies of that when you're looking at online school and telehealth and all those different components. This was really structured to do a pilot, and then off of that pilot out at Jewel, LC Vine Maple was to move into other rural parts of the county. The good news is this effort has started to galvanize on a potential solution out in that area. It's not quite ready to come to the board and present, but it probably will be soon. And so this money would basically seed that. There's also a project that's going on with Colpack, which is really a longer term infrastructure project, which includes Columbia, Clatsop, Washington, and Tillamook counties. And that really deals with the longer term fiber issues and the fiber infrastructure. And so part of this set aside could go to help fund Colpack's efforts, which is only about $25,000 would be the county share, but to support their efforts to really tackle this longer term solution approach. The approach we're using in the rural areas is to give folks an intermediate solution, which is way better than what they have now, but would also be served by a fiber backbone. So that's the work Colpack is also doing. The other is there's resources here consistent with the strategic plan for a water assessment out in Clatsop Plains. There was money in there to have a transfer station, which septage is a topic that we've talked about a lot. Our septage haulers don't have a convenient place. In fact, there's no place in the county to be offloading septage. So we would like to develop a transfer station and then help fund that. We'd like to set aside some grant resources for some private septic systems that need to be upgraded, but that can't be upgraded because of financial barriers. And then we have the Westport Sewer District that has a number of improvements that need to be made, but as a small sewer district, it doesn't have the resources. And so we would like to also invest in some improvements there. So again, these were items that we believe are consistent with the strategic plan and then the other elements of the state and the federal program, but we want to get a read from your board about whether or not those are a good starting point or whether we should add or redirect some of our efforts.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm delighted to see the broadband money. We had a broadband action team meeting this week, and we're moving forward. We're looking at 2 proposals tomorrow. What the focus, in short, is to build the middle mile, but to do enough research to be able to allow all of the other last mile developments that need to happen. So that's a rough summary. It's moving forward. Having support like this is wonderful. The only thing I don't see that I'm concerned about is the issue of fire, because in my mind, bear with me, it's a stretch.
we're seeing people who want to get away from the cities. They want to camp out in the forest and build fires. They want to have beach fires. They want to have fires at their transient rentals. So I don't know if my concerns about fire, I know I've heard that Commissioner Banks has some concerns. The county manager is, I think, looking at what we can do about that. Does that fit in here anywhere, county manager, or does that come from someplace else? Or help me understand, please.
Sure, Commissioner Thompson, I would say that would likely come from other places, and we do have some ideas about where that would come from and how we would approach it. I think that the biggest thing right now regarding fire is to create the table and invite everybody to the table so that we can have ODF, Fire Defense Board, individual fire agencies, the county. When I say county, I mean community development, extension, county manager's office, and others at the table, the sheriff, and just talk through what kinds of policies that we might need, how we deal with enforcement, what the enforcement options are, and then obviously there's a public education piece to that also. And so I just think we need to create a table. And so what I would say is there are other places within our budget that we can look to bring some of those resources to bear to actually create that table and to support it through a consultant, because that's what I think it's going to take to really move that. There's just so many players, it just takes coordination.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And I'd love to be included in those meetings.
Yes, Commissioner, thank you.
Commissioner Webb.
As an outgrowth, in fact, of the team that I led about environmental quality, et cetera, issues, we actually had an offer from Extension, one of the foresters at Extension who has only been here a couple of years and came from Humboldt County, California, is a bit of an expert on fire, what is the word? Protection, remission, and offered to actually do a program that Extension can do, which relates specifically to issues around fire protection around individual homes that are in rural areas. And then when we started talking about those issues, it seemed as if, especially now, I know ODF is doing a lot of work on fire prevention. And so I think this is something I'd kind of like to see written down, you know, not just thrown in the bucket, but because I think, you know, I mean, Don, do you feel that it's feasible to use these kinds of monies on things like that?
Well, so no, what I suggest is that, and Monica just reminded me, is that we actually budgeted resources in next year's budget for this, for this effort. And so I think that it is already funded within the budget. And so what we will do is we have been having conversations with a lot of the players, and there's been a small table that has met that includes Extension. We just need to broaden that table to include some of your board members, to include ODF, and include some of the other partners. And so it is something that is really actionable in a fairly tighter timeline. And so we will start working on that, and we'll come and update your board as soon as we get a concept in place. So that is the concept plan in a nutshell. I don't really expect, there's a lot of information here, and this is the first time that we've kind of walked through it, so I don't expect all of your feedback tonight. But what I would just say is that if, as you look at it, and if you have other suggestions, if you could just reach out to me and or Monica we can take all those comments and share them as part of our Friday update, whether it's this week or it's next week. And then we'll start putting a little bit more detail into this and start having conversations with our partners. And then at some point have it to a point where hopefully your board will feel comfortable approving it in concept, again, knowing that we're going to come back with every individual action by the board to make sure you feel comfortable at that time. So.
Commissioner Webb has another question here.
Yeah, well, I have a response to this effort. When I took a deep dive into this presentation, I was really pleased at and having just been through the budget process, I think almost helped because we had been looking at unmet needs. I would like us to start off with a very specific public information program. I don't want us, I don't want to see a headline in the newspaper that says county has $7.8 million and the board is going to decide how to spend it. I think we need to be very, very, have a very robust outreach. And I think that should be meeting, first of all, with the cities. The cities are doing exactly what we're doing right now. And I think it is extremely important that we talk to them about what appropriate things, what is appropriate for the county to do, which supports some of the city priorities. And I think this could easily be a meeting to have very soon. It probably doesn't require all the city councils and all the county commissioners, et cetera. But I think it certainly is an important first priority. Secondly, I would love to see us have some mechanisms for public comment at the different levels that the staff has presented to us tonight. I think they could be mass meetings, they could be Zoom calls, I just think that asking the public to come to us directly with ideas would be very helpful. And then I think there are the intermediate level or the advanced level of our businesses. I think it would be very useful to get the chambers of commerce together and ask them to have some discussions about some of these suggestions. I think it would be a very cool thing to do for each commissioner to be willing to meet one-on-one with some of our major employers. We have some. I mean, we have some. We have WANA. We have the seafood folks. We have timber companies. I think we owe it to them to sit down with them and talk about these resources and how they might recommend that we include them at a minimum in the decision-making process, and maybe even be able to address something specific to them. So I would really encourage a very thoughtful public information campaign strategy, and to do it soon, before the rest of the public starts misinterpreting what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. And I do think it's good that we've had this discussion. We have this work session. We're going to have more opportunities to review this. And it is important that we do this in keeping with our strategic plan and with the governor's 10 points about how this money should be spent. So that has to be kind of our guide rails as we're doing this process. I'm really pleased to see the $1 million carved out for grant programs for small businesses. That's extremely important, and that is in the first year. So it's a healthy chunk of that $3.7 million is going to be going towards for grants for small businesses and working through CEDAR. Very important to me, and I'm glad to see that. don't have any other comments or questions or hands raised at this point in time. So, County Manager, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that, like I said, just if the board has any questions or comments for us, please share those. We'll start talking about the community engagement piece. I wanted to have this conversation first because if we're not on the same page, then we would have to redoubling down. And so we'll start working on that, and then we'll come back to your board and talk about what that might look like and get your feedback before we engage. So.
Great. Thank you, County Manager. We've got about 4 minutes before we can start the regular meeting. Why don't we take that time to take a break and then get settled in. We'll go ahead and start at 6. Thanks so much. Okay, I think we got everybody back. Let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and convene the meeting here. The Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Teresa, can we have the roll call?
Commissioner Toyoka,
Present.
Commissioner Webb,
Present.
Commissioner Thompson,
I'm here.
Commissioner Banks,
Here.
Chair Quila.
Here. Okay, first item is the agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Thompson would move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify with an eye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. First item is the proclamation proclaiming May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day. Is there a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day?
Commissioner Toyoka,
So
are you
moved.
going to do that? No, Commissioner Toyoka should get that.
Thank you. I'm trying to find the actual. Apologize.
Yeah, just would be a support of the resolution order proclaiming Memorial Day.
I'm making a motion to support the resolution to make May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day, recognizing the ultimate sacrifice to our nation.
Commissioner Thompson would second.
Moved and seconded to support the resolution in order proclaiming May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day. All those in favor signify with an eye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Board of County Commissioners for Clatsop County, Oregon, in the matter of proclaiming May 31st, 2021 to be Memorial Day. Resolution in order. Whereas in 1868, 3 years after the end of the Civil War, Major General John A. Logan declared May 30th as Decoration Day, the precursor to Memorial Day. And whereas in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which took effect in 1971 and declared the last Monday of May as Memorial Day. And whereas as the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs estimates approximately 656,000 veterans have died in battle, 552,000 died in services, but not in battle, and 32.5 million have died after military service. And whereas today, more than 3,500 veterans of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard call Clatsop County home. And whereas it is our responsibility and obligation to remember and demonstrate our gratitude for veterans who are no longer with us, as well as their birth and chosen families, keeping their stories alive. And now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Clatsop County does hereby proclaim May 31st, 2021 as Memorial Day, dated this 26th day of May, 2021.
Chair Quila,
Yes.
this is Teresa. We did have a public health update prior to the proclamation. If we could put that back in now.
Sure. I didn't have it on my script.
Oh, okay.
Well, turn it over to our County Health Director, Margot Lawley.
Good evening again. It's a lovely proclamation. Quick update. So as you know, everyone's focused on our threshold, 65%, 70%. So I'll start there. Spent the weekend working on drafting the equity plan to submit to the state. We can submit that before we reach the threshold. And the plan is to do so. I am waiting for some data to come in from our CBOs, and the OHA is helping with that data, as well as just comments and edits from colleagues who have been intimately involved with the strategies. So I'm hoping that we'll have a final draft of that. I'm going to be in a 5-hour plane ride tomorrow, and so I plan it's a perfect time to be working on something like that. No interruptions, and so I plan to get it done, and we'll get that in as soon as we can. Very proud of it and proud of the work we've done, so we want to submit a good document. And then also about the 70%. We are going to be convening, Tom's, I think, really leading this, but Chris and I talked about it this morning. Our comms team, CMH, will be involved with this as well, of really doing somewhat of a social media blitz and a media blitz, really instead of focusing on that 65%, because we're about 60% now, focusing on 70%, because that really is the ultimate goal, right? That's going to change. That's the game changer. And we're so close, right? We're like between, I think, 1,700, 1,800 at this point. And so that will unfold and be implemented over the next few days and certainly into next week. We just approved our calendar of standing events for the rest of July or rest of June, and then our clinics will sunset for the rest of the summer. Be ready to scale up if needed, but we're moving more towards, as I've mentioned before, these pop-up clinics like what we did today. We have larger employers, we have school districts who are interested in having us do clinics, as well as doing outreach, as I've mentioned, to Cannon Beach to reach some of the population that may have a difficult time getting to clinics. So a former employee has come back, Bridget Blakesley, and she is our vaccine outreach coordinator, and she is up and running overnight. So that's fantastic. And we are putting together some more community listening sessions between the school districts and health advisors at OHA and myself. So we're finalizing some dates following the one we had in Jewel a week ago. Let's see, I think that's really about it. You know, I do want to say we've done really well in terms of having minimally disrupted clinics with this whole vaccination campaign. Some communities have had to wrestle with a little bit more disruption from people who may not believe in vaccines or have different views about what the whole pandemic is about. We're seeing a little bit more activity in this realm. I think it's because we are, you know, reaching out more to the pediatric population, and we all have their health and well-being in our best interest. And so we're just tending to that, but we might hear a little bit of more activity around people's thoughts or people perhaps just showing up at clinics wanting to be heard or see what's going on. So we have a great infrastructure and support team to make sure that everyone is safe and well and people get vaccinated who want to get vaccinated. So I think that's it for me. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I see Commissioner Thompson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the governor is, we're looking at lotteries now to encourage people. You know, you can't second guess, we can't, nobody can second guess the governor. But I wonder if that, if you anticipate how effective that will be in our county. Do you have any kind of read on that?
Well, I'm sort of doing my own informal study right now. And so when I am at clinics, as always, I ask people, so especially if I see them not necessarily scheduled or first dose at this point in time. So what prompted you to come to the clinic? And not one of the responses has been the lottery or that they were just waiting to see what would happen. It's that they've moved here, they have a new job, and their job wants them to be vaccinated. It's not the answers I'm actually expecting, which tells me I have a little bit of a bias in there. But I haven't heard anyone talking about the lottery who are standing in line. You know, we had a clinic last night, and people aren't even talking about it. I think there's much more activity on social media in response to the governor's announcements. I did review a lot of those comments, but yeah.
Commissioner Toyoka.
Just a side comment on the whole lottery and incentive programs that are out there. I hear a lot of commentary on the opposite side of it is, people who are already vaccinated or choose not to, why are they excluded from the lottery? Isn't there, can we sue the government? Can we sue the governor? And so I think there's also very negative ramifications to that lottery as well.
Yeah, I think, our position in public health is that we don't engage in that conversation. And, our focus and the prize is that we have a healthy community. And so I think we're quite purist when it comes to really wanting to reach the community, meet them where they're at, and make sure that everyone has equitable access to vaccinations.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Quick follow-up. I went to the Place Matters conference. It was very moving to me to hear voices of people honored and courageous and wise sharing. You're doing the DEI plan, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion plan. Does it change anything you're doing, or have we already been doing that under your auspices?
It's a great question, and it's really a community effort. That's the thing in writing the plan, is that it gives you an opportunity to really reflect on what we've done, what we've done well. What I realized just in retrospect, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to add that, and that's really important. Capturing what the CBOs are doing is also really important because they're more intimately connected to some parts of the community. But overall, it doesn't change what we've been doing. I think we have a good track record of reaching people in our community and meeting them where they're at. I think that we are going to get more intimately connected with community, for example, where there are some more larger co-housing communities, right, of actually going into the housing communities and vaccinating. But hey, I've climbed into some people's cars over this campaign, including last night, and I climbed into a truck and I was vaccinating someone. So whatever it takes, right, to make sure that they get vaccinated.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? We support our county health department 100%, and we thank you so much for all you're doing to get 2 people within the county by any means necessary. We want to get to that 70%. So thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll move on to the next item, which is business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except for public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
Yes, Paul Putke.
Okay, Paul.
Good evening. Thank you for providing me the time to speak with you tonight. My name is Paul Putke. I am the president of AFSCME Local 2746, representing county employees who keep our county running. We ensure our roads are safe, our elections are held with integrity, our court system runs effectively, our community development progresses, our fisheries are sustained, and support the health care needs of our residents. As you know, our union is currently bargaining our contract with county representatives. We want to ensure the commissioners that our #1 priority in bargaining is to continue to provide the best possible public service to our community. If this past year has taught us anything, it is that the services we provide our community are more important than ever. As essential employees, we have worked through a global pandemic delivering essential services for our county, and we will continue to. That is why we entered bargaining with an intent to provide common sense, reasonable ideas to help the county running efficiently. While bargaining has reached its final stages, there is work left unfinished to reach a fair healthcare solution for all county employees. I look forward to working with Dawn to structure a benefits working group that is equitable and committed to looking at all the options in order to support all county employees. We will continue to keep the faith and serve our county. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Putke, and thank you for yours, and thank you for joining us this evening. Teresa.
Nancy, yes, Nancy Chase.
Nancy Chase. I think I see you.
I'm unmuted. Okay.
You're
Nancy
unmuted.
Chase. Thank you. Nancy Chase, 3026 Northeast 22nd Avenue in Portland. And I'm a short-term rental owner in Falcon Cove. So I really enjoyed the pause on short-term rentals. You probably have too. But I think you're starting back up, and it gave me a time to kind of look back to wonder why in January, the current short-term rental ordinance was adopted in January 2018. So it's only been 2.5 years, and a year of that was a pandemic. So I started to wonder what was needed other than some housekeeping. So what was driving it? And I looked at the staff report for next week, and it had all the concerns of both sides. And what stuck out to me was that many of these concerns, like for instance, violations on septic, are handled elsewhere. You have a on-site septic system program that has folks to send out to work with people. That seemed very, very proactive. On fire permits, which is one of the violations proposed for short-term rentals having a fire without a permit. The Oregon Department of Forestry has regulations that manage that. They were out today to give me my permit and some hints on how to make it better. So I think you need to go through that list of concerns and which ones are really legitimate or really related only to short-term rentals and not to everybody in the county. And so what are the concerns that you do need to address? And then I think you need to fact check. How many short-term rentals really are there? Are they increasing as rapidly as people are concerned about? What are the true facts? Because right now you have allegations on both sides. And I think you really need those facts and see if it merits your concern or you need to address it as an issue on the upcoming workshops. So that's what I have to say. And I really thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Chase. Any other?
Yes, one more. Tita Montero.
Tita.
Good evening. My name is Tita Montero. I live at 135 6th Avenue South in Seaside. I want to address the draft concept funding options for the monies that the county will be receiving from the American Rescue Act. I don't know if you're familiar with my current work with the Seaside City Council is that I am helping to lead initiatives for helping with the state of homelessness in our city. I do believe we also have that problem throughout the county, not just the cities. And in my research and going back in history for our county and looking at how it's handled in other counties and what all is going on, I sincerely do feel that our county is behind the curveball. I don't see exactly where you are looking to possibly put funding into the I'm going to say the relief and prevention of homelessness. I do see the I think NOAA. I don't know what a NOAA development coordinator is for a total of $450,000. A navigation center, I'm not exactly sure what that is. Emergency shelter systems support for $250,000. Emergency shelters are simply a Band-Aid, and we can continue them as long as we want, but that's really not going to help the homeless situation in our county. What we need to look at are actions and programs where I think supportive housing is one way to look at it. There's a lot of different things that lead into homelessness. I have been listening in on the Homeless Leadership Consortium out of the Tri-County area in Bend and Redmond, etc. And they really have a lot of good things going on there. They know how to get money. I would like to see, I know a lot of thought has gone into this draft concept. I would like to see how we can put some money into the homelessness and actually resurrect what hasn't been happening. I just spent the afternoon reading the plan to relieve or to eradicate homelessness in 10 years that was produced in 2012. And it supposes that everything that's in that plan would eradicate homelessness by next year. Very little has been done. I found that plan to be aspirational without a lot of active. And I don't remember that plan ever being promulgated back in 2012. Of course, I wasn't paying as much attention back then either. But I know the county did not adopt that plan. So again, what I'm looking at is how can we pull it together as a county, because this is not just a city by city situation. And I would like to see some of the funds from the American Rescue Act go into the work and the programs that we need to reduce homelessness in our county. Thank you.
Chair Quila, you're muted.
Sorry
That's
about
all
that.
that's all the public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone that provided comment this evening. We'll go ahead and move on to our next item, which is public hearings. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Liaison reports. No, gosh, I'm sorry, I skipped way ahead here. Consent calendar. So,
Mr. Chair, move adoption
consent
of the-
calendar. Sorry about that.
Yeah, could we move adoption of the consent calendar, Mr. Chair? Commissioner Thompson.
I will second that.
Okay, moved and seconded to adopt the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Liaison reports. We'll start with Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Well, it's been a busy week. I pitched the North Coast Business Park as a manufacturing facility and talked to the people at Tallwood Design Institute, because you know what? It could happen. Maybe the folks in North Portland are looking to expand. We'll see what happens. I spoke also with Chief Reckman, the fire chief in Cannon Beach, because we've got a couple of items from him later on. The chief said he's running a drill tonight. I have his phone number if he needs to be texted to include Lori Eggle's office here. I mean, I don't know. I think we can handle this. We're talking about the shortage of affordable housing for firefighters in Arch Cape. So he's got land. I pitched to the Tallwood Design Institute. Maybe they want to have a test, a pilot there of modular mass plywood panel housing to house volunteer firefighters in Arch Cape. We'll see if that goes anywhere. I'm very concerned about the issue of fires outdoors in legal and illegal camping, in short-term rentals, and in neighbors, because what I see is we can't demonize one kind of population. We all falter. We all feel good about doing what we want to do and don't want to be told no. So I heard what Commissioner Webb said about expanding our public information effort and including people's voices. I was chair of that effort in Portland at the the Bureau of the whole city of Portland. I'll just say that. So I've got some experience in that. What I see in Clatsop County, because it's newer and less developed here than it was in the Portland area, sometimes neighbors think if they only give us their opinion, if they only tell us what they perceive as facts, we are therefore obliged to accept that as the voice of the whole public and to obey their input as our command. And I would caution us to manage those expectations as we go forward, because for me, the key words are balance and harmony. We have to respect and include all points of view. That's the challenge that we have as county commissioners for everybody in the county, the people who show up to meetings, the people whose lives don't allow them to show up to meetings. And I'm thinking of the people I've heard in restaurants talking about having to hold 3 jobs and couch surfing or sharing apartments with 4 or 5 or 6 unrelated people or living in a van. There's a whole lot of people with a whole lot of different realities. So our challenge is to use our best judgment and our compassion to do as Nancy Chase said, to sift fact from assertion and sentiment and balance it and harmonize it to produce good public policy. The other thing I'm working on is the Broadband Action Team. We're looking at proposals tomorrow to help us map the needs for broadband for middle mile and to set the stage to allow building of the last mile to homes and businesses and hospitals and schools. So all those are currently in action. That's my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Commissioner Bangs.
Good evening. I just wanted to recap my week. Started with the child care discussion, and I like to give credit where credit's due. And I know that this meeting of the minds is going to be fluid, and there will be more movers coming in and out throughout these meetings. But Dan Gaffney is a continuous presence that I want to just shake a can at and say I appreciate his continued support and continued just presence in our meetings. Eva Manderson also, and County Council was also there. I know that childcare is important to Joanna as much as it is to me and to Mark, and so I'm really excited about the process that we are developing moving forward. I had a really eye-opening and quite enjoyable meeting with CFEDC, and fires was definitely one of the topics of conversation, and discussing fires and education. And I feel like we have so many highly educated, well-versed members in our community that could help develop a plan for us in the future in order to educate the public regarding forest fires, fires on state lands, and fires just in general. And, you know, I just feel like we are in a spot in our community where there are a lot of people that we can bring together to the table and come out with an amazing plan to address what I consider is an issue also, Commissioner Thompson. And then, and it's an issue near and dear to my heart because I continually donate my husband to the cause every summer. So it is definitely near and dear to my heart. And then also in regards to that discussion with CFEDC, they were moving forward with a plan for tours for hopefully us here in the near future, hopefully in person. So the discussion is moving forward for tours for us, and then that segued over to our Clatsop County Working Watersheds. I'm really impressed. Tillamook Working Watersheds has done a lot of work in the past, has developed quite a plan and developed quite a educational group there. And so Clatsop County Working Watersheds is following in their footsteps and is developing a similar, very successful outline of education for our community and outreach for our community. So I was just impressed with the notes that I've been receiving from them. So anyhow, that has kind of been my week in a nutshell. So thank you.
Big week. Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Toyoka.
Oh, good evening. Just reiterate about Memorial Day, number one, just thankful to all those who sacrificed all so that we might pursue this life in the United States. Secondly, just wanted to make a comment on as we, go through the American Rescue Act monies and thinking of the distribution and how we can be thoughtful in our, accounting of it. I kind of want to semi-echo what Commissioner Thompson was saying, is that there's a lot of different circumstances, a lot of different emotions, a lot of different factors, going into this decision process. We had, a homeless issue prior to COVID. We had substance abuse issues prior to COVID. We had, market-based and affordable housing issues prior to COVID. So as we go through the process, we want to ensure that we don't take Band-Aid measures with this valuable money, that we do look to the root of the issues, and that we make sensible, thoughtful choices that will benefit this county long term. So just my sentiment on the act, and hopefully, I know as a group we can do that. We can represent our county well in that fact.
Well said, Commissioner Toyoka. Thank you. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I just have one thing. You all indulged me in the work session. An organization called CHART, which is Clackamas Health something. It's a wonderful coalition that our health department put together a couple of years ago, and they had a first. It's called Place Matters. And the first, then it was a summit. It happened here 2 years ago, and it was a terrific revelation because as a land use planner, I have spent many years studying the effects of the built environment on the way people live. And this is kind of a new look at that. It's a national movement of Place Matters. And it's a way of taking a look at early education and safety and trauma-informed care, where people live, what neighborhoods they live in, what schools they go to, etc. And this year, they didn't have one last year. This year has been a series which you can all access from the health department. It's called Place Matters, and it has been a series of speakers who, starting off with a woman who was just fabulous in explaining what the issues are around the places that people live. And I have always been concerned that, at least at the beginning of my career, we were very concerned about inner city issues, about housing exclusion and poor health conditions. And somehow I didn't get the message that I'm not sure any administration has cared very much about rural issues. I think in the last year, we have seen it in spades. I wish we could bring in staff from the harbor, who was one of the speakers at Place Matters, talking about the incidence of domestic violence, which has been increasing exponentially in the last pandemic year. I think these are issues that to be informed, please go to the County Health Department website, carve out a couple of hours, and please watch these presentations from Place Matters. First of all, you'll become familiar with some of our most important community leaders, but also to get the latest research and thinking in the whole issue of of how important paying attention to where people live is in coordination with their health indicators. And it's crazy, incredible, and it's not just an inner city problem or a small town fishing problem. So place matters. Go look at it. It's worth every minute of your time.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Webb. Just a reminder, and I know that Margot, our County Health Director, had kind of touched on this, but we will be moving into the moderate risk level Thursday. It sounds as though the warning week will no longer be an issue if you're going to move down. So hopefully we can keep our caseload within the 19 cases for 2 weeks and move into the low category next week. That has to be a goal of ours. Hopefully we can get there. And of course, it all goes away if we can reach these thresholds of 65% and ultimately 70%. That's the most important number, as our County Health Director indicated. So good news. We'll move on to public hearings. We have our first public hearing, which is the annexation of Rancho Santa Fe Acres LLC property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. And do we have a staff report?
Yes, Commissioner. Tracy Kravenko, County Clerk. So the issue we have before you today is a public hearing and decision on annexation of property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. So at the board meeting, excuse me, on May 12th, 2021, a public hearing date was set for today, May 26, 2021, to hear any public comment on annexation of certain property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. The staff received 2 petitions by Rancho Santa Fe Acres LLC to annex 2 properties located in Cannon Beach into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. The petitions meet all the criteria pursuant to ORS 198.857, and a request for the preliminary approval on the legal description has been sent to the Department of Revenue. This request is made on behalf of the landowner to include their property into a fire district. The land currently is not in a fire district. Staff finds the petition is in lawful form and the district approves the petition. The affected district and the landowner have received written notification of the public hearing. However, the hearing was not required to be published in the newspaper because it involves a single property owner. Staff is asking the Board of County Commissioners now to hear any public comment and consider approval of the proposed annexation.
Thank you, County Clerk Kravenko. Any questions of staff? I'm not seeing any. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Clerk of the Board, has the petitioner signed up to testify?
No, they have not, but I would like to see if possibly they are on the line, if they'd like to speak up.
Is the petitioner, have they joined us via telephone?
Okay, I guess not.
I don't see anybody. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. Has any other member of the public signed up to testify on this matter?
No, they have not.
Okay. Is there any staff, further staff comments? I'm not seeing nothing to respond to, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the resolution in order approving the annexation of Rancho Santa Fe Acres LLC property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Thompson would move to approve the resolution in order approving the annexation into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District of Rancho Santa Fe Acres LLC property.
I second that
Move to
motion.
second. Okay, excellent. Moved and seconded to approve the resolution in order approving the annexation of Rancho Santa Fe Acres LLC property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll go ahead and move on to our next item of business, and next public hearing is an annexation of Solares property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. And County Clerk Kovenko, do we have a staff report?
Yes, you do. Again, Tracy Kravenko, County Clerk. Issue again before you is a public hearing and decision on annexation into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. At the board meeting on May 12th, public hearing date was set for May 26th to hear public comment on annexation of certain property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. Staff received a petition by Alan and Mary Solares to annex their property located in Arch Cape into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. The petition meets all the criteria pursuant to ORS 198.857, and a request for the preliminary approval on the legal description has been sent to the Department of Revenue. This request is made on behalf of the landowner to include their property into a fire district. The land currently is not in a fire district. Staff finds the petition is in lawful form and the district approves the petition. The affected district and the landowner, again, have received written notification of the public hearing. However, the hearing is not required to be published in a newspaper because it involves a single property owner who has requested the annexation. Staff is asking the Board of County Commissioners now to hear public comment and consider approval of the proposed annexation.
Thank you, County Clerk Kovenko. Any questions of staff?
Mr. Chair. Thank you. I was interested in this matter because this Solares property has been operating. It's really a lodge. It was never built as a family residence. It was built as a mini hotel. So there was a lot of consternation in the neighborhood about the operation of this as a short-term rental. There were large groups of people who came, weddings with over 100 people in shuttle buses and lots of activity, fireworks displays on 4th of July that were so loud and so powerful they shook the windows of my house. So this is a property that has excited a lot of attention from the neighbors over the years. I was interested to see that they had not joined the fire district. So I spoke with the fire chief about it. I spoke with the county clerk. And by the way, the fire chief, Chief Reckman, made sure that I passed on his compliments to our county clerk for her competence and helpfulness in this process. He had high praise for her. It's always nice to get unsolicited testimonials. Congratulations, county clerk, on that one. But I asked staff to look at the amount of support that wasn't provided, because if there is a structure that's in a fire district but it doesn't belong, either it didn't know, wasn't required to join, chose not to join, whatever, they have not been required to as of a certain date in the past. Now they have to join the fire district. I don't know when that passed. At a certain point, an ordinance was passed that said if you want to get a building permit, you have to join the fire district, which is important because if the homeowner doesn't join the fire district, they're not required to pay the associated taxes to support the fire district. So I said, okay, the Solares property was transferred, I'm told, in November 1996. In 1998, I'm told, it came onto the tax rolls. I said, well, what were the unpaid taxes to support the fire district, the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District, that did not happen, that were not paid? And the county manager said staff had gathered the information. County manager, did I hear you correctly? $11,727 unpaid. Was that accurate?
Commissioner Thompson, that is the correct amount. And what I would just clarify is that is an amount that if this property would have been in the Cannon Beach Rural Fire District, that's the amount that they would have paid during that period of time.
Thank you. That's very clear. Now, rest assured, if there had been a call for fire services or EMS services, Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District would have shown up to provide those fire or EMS services. Then they would have billed the homeowner later for them, but they still wouldn't have had the support of the homeowner to provide the personnel and the equipment to run the fire district in the first place. So I'm glad that my neighbors are joining the fire district. I'm glad that the rules were changed so that anybody who wants a building permit has to join the fire district, because we need everybody to be paying their fair share. Commissioner Toyoka has been pointing to the sacrifice of members of the armed services. Well, everybody who's part of the community also sacrifices to pay for our community institutions and services. So we are a team, we are in this together, and I'm glad that we are going to have complete coverage for the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. That's more of a comment than a question, I think.
Yeah, but I appreciate Commissioner Thompson, you providing that context. That's very helpful and good food for thought. Any other questions or comments? If none, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Clerk of the board, has the petitioner signed up to testify?
No, they have not.
Any other member of the public signed up to testify?
No, they have not.
Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the resolution and order approving the annexation of Solera's property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District?
Mr. Chair, I would move, Commissioner Thompson would move to approve the resolution and order approving annexation into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District of the Solaris property, 79560 Ray Brown Road, Arch Cape.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution and order approving the annexation of Solaris property into the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, County Clerk Cravenko.
Thank you.
The next item on the business agenda, which is the Arts Council of Clatsop County Appointment and Bylaws Amendment, page 114.
Yes, commissioners, this is Teresa. I'm the liaison to the Arts Council, and as we spoke at the last work session, there was 4 applicants for 1 opening on the Arts Council, and the Arts Council is recommending Scott Justice to be the new member, and we're hoping to keep the other 3 involved. And also they wanted to update their bylaws, just nothing significant. The main thing is changing when they elect the officers. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Liaison Durst? Okay, not seeing any. Do we have a motion to approve the appointment?
Commissioner
Yes.
Webb?
I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody? I move to verify the appointment proposed for the Arts Council. I'm sorry.
And the revision to the bylaws dated.
And the revisions to the bylaws. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
I'd second.
Which I can tell you are mostly, they're just administrative cleanup. You know, they're not.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and we'll approve the appointment of Scott Justice to the Arts Council with the term expiring December 31st, 2022, and a revision to the bylaws dated May 2021. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Teresa. We have the Fair Board reappointments on page 129. And I see John Lewis is joining us.
Good evening, Commissioners. Yes, I have 2 Fair Board members that need to be reappointed. Their terms were actually expired 12/31 of 20. COVID apparently has delayed everything, but we're getting it done. And so Mike Audio and Matt Bellingham both have requested to be reappointed. We ran an ad for 30 days and we didn't get any other applicants for these positions.
And thank you very much, John. Do we have any questions on this? Our Fairgrounds Manager, Commissioner Bangs.
I just wanted to take a moment and say how much I appreciate that both Mike Audio and Matt Bellingham have resubmitted their applications for another go round. They're integral to the operation of County Fair and to those fairgrounds, and I love that they're throwing their hat back in for another round of service, because I don't know what we would do without them. So I just wanted to say I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So do we have a motion?
I move that we reappoint Mike Audio and Matt Bellingham to the Fair Board with terms expiring in December 31, 2023.
Second.
Okay.
All right, moved and seconded to approve the reappointment of Mike Audio and Matt Bellingham to the Fair Board with terms expiring December 31st, 2023. All those in favor signify with an aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, John. Good to see you.
All right, thank you. You guys have a good evening.
You too.
Chair Quila,
Yes.
this is Teresa. Would you like to go back to County Manager report? I believe we skipped over.
Sure. Yeah, I do. My apologies, Don. I'm gonna have to look closer at the script.
Sorry,
So,
Don.
I hate to extend your evening now, so I'm just going to be really quick. I just want to thank Mr. Putke and the ASME leadership team for being a valued partner in providing critical and essential services to the community. We really are blessed to have an amazing cadre of public employees, and I just want to thank them for their leadership and their partnership with the county.
Yes, thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Thompson.
I'll agree with that as well. I'm really cautious about saying anything that sounds like when they're engaged in collective bargaining, we say anything about anything, but I agree with what the county manager said.
Commissioner Banks.
It's not directly in regards to this, but I'm looking at Commissioner Toyoka on my screen, and we went through County College again last week, and I just have to say how much I greatly appreciate our sheriff and all of our rural law enforcement employees. I know that I just want to say, wow, they have their hands full, and I learned a lot.
Completely agree with that statement. Any other comments? Mr. Toyoka.
Well, just to dovetail on Commissioner Bangs, through the county college, I would say that, living in a rural area, there's an old saying, common sense is a common virtue, but it's not really true. And we are blessed that it is a fact here in Clatsop County.
So true. Well, we don't have anything else on the agenda. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order? We'll go ahead then and adjourn into executive session. The Clatsop County Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session. The executive session is held pursuant